This is Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz. We're in San Luis Obispo County today, and we are joined by Jordan Cunningham. He is a candidate for the California State Assembly. He is running for the seat currently held by Cacho Ashajian, who is termed out of the California State Legislature. I want to get a sense from you, sir, why, as the father of four, a successful lawyer, you would ever want to run for the California State Legislature.
I get that question from time to time.
Of course you do.
Well, Brad, I think it's important that the taxpayer have a voice in Sacramento. I think small business needs a voice in Sacramento. And I think we're doing things on a state level that are making it harder for my kids, other people's kids, to have the kind of opportunity they're going to need to raise families here.
Let's talk about your accession to Sacramento, should it be. You're running as a Republican. You represent a district, presumably, should you win, that is Republican, but fairly moderate, a fairly moderate district. How do you make yourself relevant in Sacramento when it's a body that is dominated by Democrats? Mr. Ashajian has done well, I've heard. So how will you make yourself relevant?
Well, I think it's you got to be focused on issues that matter to working families. I think you got to be focused on protecting the taxpayer. And as you know, if the Republicans were to lose, slip back into the super minority, there would be no ability to stop tax increases anymore. Things like extending the sales tax in California, which is already the highest in the nation, extending it to all services. I don't know if you've heard this idea.
Right, yeah. Senator Bob Hertzberg has looked at the possibility, although to be fair, what he'd like to do is lower the sales tax but spread it out to services. Who knows what would happen, but that's part of the proposal.
Yeah, no, and that is fair, although when they scored his bill, they scored it as a $10 billion tax increase.
He admits that.
So
he says that.
It's a tax grab.
Right.
And something like that, I think, would be terrible for our economy, terrible for people on fixed incomes. Everything you need in life, if you're a business or a homeowner, would cost 8% more overnight.
But we know that you want to be a protector of the taxpayer, which is great. But how do you reach across the aisle? I mean, look, you're a young guy, you know, lots of young Democrats are probably up there as well. You know, how do you become friends with the Democrats? Because look, you gotta be if you want to get anything through.
Absolutely.
So what's your strategy?
Well, look, I went to undergrad at Point Loma Nazarene University. I went to law school at UC Berkeley.
Okay, not bad.
I've swum in some different waters.
You have.
And, you know, I've always prioritized, like Cacho has done a good job of building relationships across the aisle. You know, sometimes you're maybe not the point person for a bill, but if it's a good idea and it needs to get in there, you find a friend who's, you know, a Central Valley Democrat, pro-business, pro-ag. A lot of San Diego moderates. They're Orange County moderates. I mean, there's a growing coalition, I think, of Republican and Democrat legislators that understand that we have been running California in a way that's driving business out. And it needs to change. And I'll give you an example. A bill to reform California's version of the ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, which is different in California because it gives damages when there's no harm to the plaintiff. So it's a magnet for predatory lawsuits here. Small businesses getting hit everywhere, on Central Coast, up and down the state. The best reform bill right now pending in the legislature to change that law is carried by a Central Valley Democrat.
And there's no question that having those types of coalitions work. I mean, look, last year Republicans and Democrats got together on the water bond.
Now we need to protect the money and make sure it goes to the building water infrastructure.
Let's talk about that. We are sitting on the Central Coast today, and surrounding us are some very successful or potentially successful desalination plants. As you know, in Cambria to the north, there's a hybrid desal plant. Santa Barbara is looking at bringing their desal plant back online. In San Diego, everyone is very excited about the Carlsbad desal plant. It should be the biggest desal plant in the Western Hemisphere. I understand that you see desal as an exciting water source for the future.
We need supply. This drought will end eventually. It will. But we don't have the infrastructure to capture the average rainfall in California. We've got growers fighting homeowners over dwindling aquifers that are just going down. We need to recharge them. Desal gives an opportunity, and we have a great opportunity here because PG&E at Diablo Canyon already has a desal plant that's
Yeah,
in
let's
operation.
talk about that. There is no doubt that that is a very exciting possibility because, like you said, they have infrastructure there. And as I understand it, relations between PG&E and the county pretty darn good.
Well, Adam Hill and Lynn Compton just spearheaded.
Those are supervisors here in this county.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Recently spearheaded a negotiation with PG&E to buy the excess water they produce at their desal plant. I think that's a great move. But we could go a step further or even 2 steps. There's enough space to put a desal plant the size of the one you mentioned in Carlsbad, which is the largest in the Western Hemisphere, right there at Diablo Canyon.
Really?
They could do it. It's right there. The straw's in the water already. They've been doing it with their existing plant in a way that's been ecologically friendly.
Right, that's part of it. You want to make sure that the excess brine does not destroy the wildlife, presumably.
And you know, the big knock on desal as a technology is it's an energy hog.
Right.
But it's a nuclear power plant.
Right, which is extremely green.
It's emission-free. That's right. And I mean, that kind of opportunity excites me because that could solve an entire generation's problems.
And my guess is it would probably excite some of your friends on the Democratic side. And
I hope so.
So here's a perfect example of, well, I wonder, I mean, does the state need to get involved in that, or is it a county issue? I mean, could you push that along when you get to Sacramento?
Absolutely could, and the state matters incredibly because you've got the potential for, like the Carlsbad plant, for CEQA to be used to hang it up for 10 years in litigation.
And let's talk about CEQA because I've interviewed several times Kristen Olson, the leader of the Republicans in the Assembly. She and others have been pushing for reform of CEQA, which would allow water projects to move on a more rapid pace without having CEQA be used as a litigation weapon. It's been stalled. What's your sense of that, about CEQA stalling, as the proponents of the bill say, these water projects?
Well, I think that's happening, Governor Brown has recognized that.
Yes, he has.
He has supported nominally. He has supported some efforts to reform CEQA.
He has said, you know, the former
he accepted
Jesuit,
the bullet train from it.
And some athletic stadiums as well.
That's right.
And he has said, you know, the former Jesuit, that it's the Lord's work to reform CEQA. Those are his words. So
California Chamber of Commerce says that CEQA reform is one of its top priorities, and there's a reason for that.
But it's interesting because, you know, Brown, a Democrat, says it. Some of, you know, Democratic members of the legislature say the same. So what needs to happen on the CEQA issue?
Build coalitions and push it until you can get it passed. And I think, you know, a lot of those things you're going to have to take an incremental approach. You're not going to get everything you want in your first bill. You're not going to get everything you want in your first bill that passes. But if you have a friendly governor and you've got a bipartisan coalition for reform.
Some have said that Jerry Brown is the best Republican governor they've seen in decades. So it's not me. I'm just saying. You know, I'm just saying. On fiscal issues, at least.
Yeah.
Some have said.
Look, we actually have a surplus in our state.
Well, yeah,
for the first time in as long as I can remember.
Right.
Now, have you heard any effort to give any of that money back to the taxpayer?
That has not been said.
No.
That has not been said.
But we have a rainy day fund too.
Right, which is helpful.
And you got to give, I think, Governor Brown some at least partial credit for that.
As we conclude, how's it going? Are you enjoying yourself?
Very much.
You're walking precincts. You're making calls.
All the above.
What's it like?
It's busy. It's nonstop. But one thing that is fun about campaigning, and if you really want to run for office, I think you have to kind of enjoy the chance to come on, talk to people like you, to go on radio, to meet voters. And you learn so much on the campaign trail about issues that are affecting people and how they're affecting people. And it really expands your view of the world.
His name is Jordan Cunningham. He is a candidate for the California State Assembly for the seat currently held by Cacho Ashajian, who is not running for re-election. He's been turned out. I'm Brad Pomerantz. This is Turtle Local Edition.